Hello everyone, you're listening to the Eiffel Tower podcast. My name's Oliver G, and if this is your first time listening to the podcast, you've come at a pretty good time. It's a pretty exciting time to be here. Let me tell you why. I'm going through all the arrondissements of Paris, all 20 of them, from 1 through to 20, in order. And every week I'm getting a special guest who can shed some kind of insight onto that district. The reason that you've come at a good time is because the 4th is a particularly cool arrondissement. The other reason is because the guest is a fantastic one. It's the mayor of the district. It's Ariel Weil, the mayor of the 4th arrondissement. He speaks excellent English. He studied in Harvard in the United States. He's been on the show before. You guys might remember him. Well, not if you're brand new. If you've been here for a while, you might remember that he was talking about the Notre Dame fire in a fairly recent episode. That was a really interesting one. So if you didn't hear that, go back and listen to that too. But in this one, it's a lot more lighthearted. We're talking about the ancient walls of the city, the churches, things you should see. But we also talk a lot about the 4th arrondissement itself. Now, when we talk about the 4th arrondissement, if you want me to give you a little bit of an insight, I'd turn you over to Bertrand from My Private Paris. I asked him, what's the deal with the 4th? And this is what he said.
The 4th arrondissement is the heart of the neighborhood, Le Marais. Okay, we talked about it last week because Marais is both on 3rd and 4th, but the 4th really was where the swamp was. Marais, in French, means a swamp. And it's that area that was developed into the new town back in the Middle Ages. Today, the 4th district is where you have a huge mix of communities. It's as much the gay district as it is the Jewish district, and you'll find quite a lot of amazing food shops.
So that's Bertrand. The company is My Private Paris. They are a boutique tour agency. They're sponsoring this season of the show. You should check them out, myprivateparis.com. If you're out for a jog or you're on your lawnmower somewhere, you can't remember that, it's in big letters at the top of my site. Or you can go to theeiffeltower.com/tours. Very easy to find. Book with them. They absolutely know what they're doing, and they'll get you access to different parts of the city you didn't even know existed. So at the end of this episode, Bertrand's going to be back telling a story. I won't give it away, but a story that has a pig, a prince, death, the 4th arrondissement, and intrigue. And he also brings a baked treat into the studio, as he has been doing for some reason every episode this season. But let me take you now to the office of the mayor of the 4th arrondissement, Ariel Weil. We sat there. You can hear it's a big office in the town hall. I've discussed his office in previous episodes, but just to paint the picture, right in the 4th, near the big town hall, actually. And one more thing to notice, at the very end of our chat, his assistants, or his aides, I guess, were in there doing faces saying, come on, Ariel, time's up. And so he kind of cut his last sentence short, and I didn't dare to do a long outro with him, so I just said, and thank you very much, and let him run. After all, he has more important things to do than chat to me, but that's why it's a bit of an abrupt ending. But he started talking about how the first 4 arrondissements are going to be merged. That's an administrative thing. That's something we'll hear about more in the future, but he sort of just touches on it. Anyway, let's talk about the 4th arrondissement. Here's Monsieur Ariel Weil, Monsieur le Maire, on the Eiffel Tower. Let's do it. Monsieur le Maire, welcome back to the Eiffel Tower.
Glad to be back.
How you feeling?
Great.
This is going to be a lot
Been
more...
missing you.
Yeah, well, this is your 4th appearance on the Eiffel Tower.
Is that?
That's, I think, up near record level.
I haven't been counting.
You haven't been, I think that's a good sign, right? But who better to talk to about the 4th arrondissement than the mayor? What can you tell me? Let's start off with a really easy question. Is it true that this might be the best arrondissement in Paris?
I think that's true.
Why?
Because, first of all, if you think about it, we were probably the oldest. I think it's generally admitted that the city of Paris started from Lutèce, from the verses of Victor Hugo himself, started from a little island in the middle of Paris, which is the Île de la Cité.
Yeah.
It's called Île de la Cité, the city island.
Is that the one that you share, the 4th arrondissement? Because
there's a little bit of the island that belongs into the 1st district,
right.
But and I'll talk to you about that. You know that we're sort of merging. We're getting together.
Sure.
But the fourth, more than the first, and I'll talk to you about the first arrondissement.
But wait, is this a point of contention with the mayor of the first?
No, not at all. No? Not at all.
You don't argue over it over dinner?
Not at all, and mostly because most of the islands, if not all of the islands, belong into the fourth district. But more seriously, and that's where Notre Dame is. But most seriously, that's the start of Paris. Was there,
2,000 years ago, right?
In antiquity, we have found. I think we go back to the first centuries, and there may be some news soon. I will just tell you that.
Hang on, what does this mean?
We may have found some, remains that would date it back to even before what we know today. So seriously, that we know that Paris started from that island, and then was built around that island, a little bit on the left bank, but more faster and more dynamically on the right bank.
Right, and so it sort of pushed northwards through the swamp or the Marais,
so it
right?
pushed north, and then it pushed a little bit to all sides. We had some documented boundaries in the forms of walls. There were several walls. Some of them are famous. I know you went around to find out the Charles V and the Philippe Auguste.
I'm a huge fan of the Philippe Auguste wall.
I know you like the Philippe Auguste, and I think you went to see that piece over there in the Fifth. But we have a beautiful piece of it in the high school,
Absolutely.
the Charlemagne High School.
Yeah. That's longest remaining stretch.
That's the longest and the most beautifully protected remain. It's actually the long wall of a school and of a sport court.
Isn't that fascinating that people play basketball there? Kids kick a soccer ball against it. They don't know that this is 800-year-old history. I think
they know, and I think some of them do know, and those that don't know, I think they somehow know it, because you don't grow up amidst that beauty without having some remains of it.
You sense that. You've got to respect.
I think you sense that, and it will affect your life in a positive way.
Right.
So we have those walls, and I tell you where it was. Paris was very small, it was tiny at the time when Philippe Auguste had built that wall. The force was right in the middle of it, and not all of the fourth district, but not much else in Paris. And slowly, gradually, Paris, I think it's one of the few cities in the world that is built like that, from its core, from its heart. And we are in the heart where, it started building from here. And so the force was there, I think back to the medieval ages. Paris was there already on the right banks. And so they pushed the walls. They pushed towards the canal de l'Arsenal, the bassin de l'Arsenal. That's where the enceinte de Charles V was. And I don't know if you've been there yet, but we've now excavated a new piece of the Charles V's wall.
Where is this?
It's the new garden that we built just before the summer. We installed a new garden right by the library. The National Library. There's a bit of the National Library that's by the Arsenal. It's called La Librairie de l'Arsenal.
Is it in a park in the corner of the park? Is that what you're talking about?
So we just built a new little square right by the Bibliothèque de l'Arsenal.
Okay, I would check it out.
Right?
But I don't think the Charles V wall is as good as the Philippe Auguste wall.
I don't know.
I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. It's right. You're right. The Philippe Auguste is older.
I've got a question for you.
And ironically, there's less left over from the Charles V.
Really?
Even though it's a later
wall. So that makes it more rare. But on the Philippe Auguste wall, I think, if I may, what would be fantastic would be to mark out somehow the route where it goes. Is that an idea that you'd ever do?
It's a fantastic idea, and we had it already, and we did it. There are places where it's except from the places where you can actually see it or see a part of it.
Right.
And there's several places. There's one right by the Crédit Municipal, which is where you give stuff when you want the money against money.
Yeah.
They have a little tower that's left over, and we have a few towers here and there. There's the Tour de Jean Sans Peur also.
Yes, and there's one there
which is in the second. Right, absolutely. There's one in the Jardin des Rosiers that we also created a few years ago.
Beautiful.
So there are those towers, but we also mark the ground. If you are Rue Rambuteau, I don't know if you've been.
I've seen it. There's the metal.
And we also completely redid Rue Rambuteau. It's beautiful now. I think we put trees out and we did a number of things. But one of the things that we did is in the middle of the street you will see those nails on the ground, and they mark exactly where the wall was.
That's cool. But why not do that for the whole wall?
It's a project. You know what? One of the things I'd like to do is
I'll help.
There's another school in the district that has, like Charlemagne, they have a wall that most people believe is the Philippe Auguste wall, or at least it's behind there. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to just scrap everything that's been built on top of it and show it.
Yeah. Oh, that would be cool. But this idea of the ancient history is one part that makes the 4th arrondissement so noticeable and so different. You were talking before I pressed record that there are also modern things in this arrondissement that add some flavor. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, this has always been the center of how Paris has reinvented itself. So, we had all those walls. We had the one on it's fantastic. If you take the 4th arrondissement, you had the antiquity, the antique walls that we found out recently, just about a century ago, on this Ile de la Cité. So there was a wall on the Ile de la Cité, it's the beginning of Paris, and that's the 4th district. Then there was Philippe Auguste, the Charles V. And then when Paris became much bigger, that's also where one of the main axes that Haussmann created in the 19th century was sort of opened. And that's the Rue de Rivoli, one of the main axes. He did like the Romans did before, and they had, remember those north-south routes and those west-east routes. Well, Haussmann did the same thing, and he cut open the center of Paris with the Rue de Rivoli and the Boulevard Sébastopol, both of which they cross in the 4th district. And it's funny because now, if you ask me what we've done more recently that's structural, and I'm not talking about all of the stuff that we've done, like the Centre Pompidou, and there's been beautiful things done, but in terms of structural things that have been done in each century, I think the most recent one is what we've just finished now. It's these axes for the fast bike lanes.
Sure.
We call them rêve in French, dream. Dream is the acronym in French of Express Bike Network.
Okay, right.
Réseau Express Vélo. And it's funny because it actually follows the main north, south, and east-west axis that Haussmann created, so that there could be more cars and the police could move faster. And we've done that. We've taken those axes and we've cut a little bit from the cars. We've cut the part that's allocated to the cars, and we've built bike lanes there, and that's new.
Yeah.
So at every century, we've continued to reinvent the city from its very core, from its heart, and it's all been starting here.
That's pretty cool. What about, you're talking to a tourist out there, they're, let's say they're staying in the 4th arrondissement and they've got one day here. How should they spend that day? And that's my last question.
The very first thing I tell them is, forget about taking a car. You should walk there. And in fact, I wouldn't tell them to just walk in the forest. I would tell them to walk throughout Paris. I think you can walk pretty much everywhere. And if you're tired, if you know how to ride a bike, then ride a bike. You'll be able to go pretty much anywhere in less than 20 minutes. And if you can't ride a bike, then I'd say take public transportation. At worst, take a cab. But you can walk everywhere, especially in the center of Paris. So what I tell them to do is maybe not go necessarily. First of all, they need to come back a few times, and after they've done all the stuff that people feel that they should be doing, they should do once, then they can do all the stuff that's interesting. They should go to all these little beautiful places, such as churches. We have, again, because of the density, because of the ancient history, we have a lot of churches. We have a huge amount. I think we have probably one of the densest concentration of churches.
You mean the 4th arrondissement?
In the forest, in the center of Paris generally.
So what are some good ones?
Well, the Saint-Gervais church that we can see from my office is beautiful. It's one of the oldest ones. It's beautiful. The Saint-Paul one has been rebuilt. It's beautiful. L'Église des Blancs-Manteaux. There are many of them. The church on the Ile Saint-Louis is also one. We have many, really. And you could do that. You have the churches, you have all those museums, and many of the museums are tiny. They're less known. The Picasso Museum now, I think, starts to be known as a beautiful mansion. The mansion itself is worth seeing without even talking about the art pieces from Picasso. But you have many of those. You have the Swedish House. You have the Musée Cognac-Jet. You have a lot. In fact, we've put all those museums into a network that we call Marais Culture Plus. So those are the stones, those are the pieces, and I can give you. We just had our a news. We just printed a magazine on that talks about the the heritage of the center of Paris. So there's this, and there's living pieces such as installations that we've done. One of the most recent ones is that piece by the artist C215, Christian Guemy. I asked him to use a support that I think is one of the ugliest things that we have in Paris, is those electric, what do you call them? The electric boxes that you see sometimes on the street. They're generally brownish, with like rugged paint, and it's ugly, but you gotta have them because they control the lights, and they control the red lights as well. So I noticed that he'd done that for the Charlie event, that he had painted that cop that was killed, that tried to step in and was killed.
Right.
And when I saw that, I called him immediately and I said, I would like you to do this. And when we talked about it, I thought that we should celebrate history. We should celebrate the history, and the peak, I think, of the history for the Marais was the 17th century. It's called the Great Century, the Grand Siècle. And so together we sat down and told me, few people know, but I'm not just an artist, I'm also a historian, and actually I focused my thesis on this period. So it was a beautiful meeting. We found each other, and we started thinking about which faces he would do, which characters he would paint. And he did that, and I think that's fantastic because it's sort of conjuring up the past of this city, of this district, but of the city. And it's putting this into a modern art piece, a modern form that talks to everyone. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of. We're taking art out of the museums, we're putting it out on the streets, and we're putting it in a way that talks to everyone, all the young generations in particular. He's a very popular guy on Instagram. You can check it up, C215 on Instagram, and you can see all those faces. And so we found a way to talk about the past in a very modern fashion. We've done the same thing with an audio walk that you can take on the banks of the Seine River, now that you can actually walk there, and it's not it's not fully devoted to cars as it was for the past 30 or 40 years. You can now walk there, and you can listen to voices from the 18th century. That's another project that we did with historian Isabelle Bacouche. She had worked on, her historian work was on how much Parisians lived close to the Seine River, and how much they were, they had all sorts of things that they did by the Seine River back then. She had comedians, including some of the comedians from the Comédie Française, that recorded voices of fishermen and carpenters and I don't know what, butchers, but back then from the 18th century. And when you go there, you can see those signs scattered around on the banks of the Seine. And if you take your phone and you scan the code, you can hear those voices for 2-3 minutes. You'll hear voices from the past. That's beautiful. The last thing I wanted to tell you is that we're not just focused on the Fourth District. We're about to build that new district, which will be called Paris Center, and it makes a lot of sense because everything I've told you about is the Marais, and the Marais already overlaps. It already straddles two districts, the 4th and the 3rd. We've been doing a lot of stuff together, the 4th and the 3rd, and I think tomorrow we'll do a lot of things all together, the first 4 districts of Paris.
Something to look forward to. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to welcome to the studio Bertrand from My Private Paris. How are you?
Bonjour.
Bonjour. How are you? I'm very well. Very well. You love the Marais.
I love Le Marais.
Do you think it's okay for foreigners like me to call it the Marais? Or does that make you feel like, oh, he's saying it so wrong?
Marais?
Yeah, like Marais.
Well, as long as you don't pronounce the silent S at the
Marais.
end. Yes, exactly.
But
that's already...
Can we get the pronunciation exactly right for, like...
Marais.
Marais.
Yeah. Oh, that was actually very good.
You look so surprised then when I said that.
I am.
Yeah.
It's been 4 weeks that you were messing up your R's.
But you think I do my R's wrong? Marais.
No, you made them too strong.
Too strong.
Yeah.
I've had French people before say that they really appreciate that I do the R's.
You try.
Because a lot of you're so honest. A lot of foreigners don't even try.
Yes.
They'll speak French and they'll say...
The worst is when people say gracias. And it happens a lot.
What do you mean in Paris when people say that? Yeah,
Yes,
I think it's because especially Americans know a little bit of Spanish.
Yes.
And their mind goes, okay, it's not English, so I'll do the foreign language in my head. Gracias.
That could be that.
I think that's my theory on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, when it comes to the fourth, you said that you had a specific story about something you guaranteed I hadn't heard about before.
Yes, because the fourth is part of this heart of the medieval Paris. And there's something that quite amazing that happened out there. Sometimes we say Paris is a dirty city. I think it's a beautiful city too. But for hundreds of years, people were just throwing their trash out in the streets, okay? And it was to be washed off by the rain.
Not just their trash, though, right? Like their...
well, it was part of the trash.
The toilets.
Yes, well...
That doesn't happen anymore, though, does it?
If you want to be specific, yeah, they was throwing the peeling of the apples, of the carrots, no? And also bones of chickens, and
Right.
that's what you were
It must have
referring
been
to.
so disgusting.
Yes.
Quick side note, because I was thinking about this. When they, I saw an old movie, a movie set in old Paris, the new Colette movie-ish. And in that movie, the streets were really clean. And I was like, I bet that a long time ago in Paris, the streets were really filthy.
Yeah, but Colette is not that. You mean Colette the writer, right?
Yeah.
With what's
It
it?
was
Keira
Keira Knightley, yeah.
So that's already after the end of my story.
But I mean, okay, to rephrase the question, did Paris used to be really filthy even fairly recently? Or is it,
The Colette times, no.
No, okay.
Now, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's filthier today than 100 years ago.
You reckon?
Yes.
Wow.
Because we just throw way more stuff.
People are so bad with littering. It breaks my heart sometimes.
It's not just that. It's just that in most streets of Paris, the trash is collected twice a day because we just have so much trash.
This is a whole different conversation. Sorry to interrupt. Back to your story.
No problem. So, yes, the fourth district is the heart of this medieval Paris. Back in the medieval times, Paris was divided into three sections. The university, which was the left bank, we'll talk about this next week. The island of power, whether it was religious or political power, with Notre Dame Cathedral and the King's Palace. And the right bank, which back then was mostly the first and the fourth district, was where the population lived, worked, and got dirty in some ways. So how would you collect the trash back then? Well, once again, either the rain just washes all the way to the Seine River, yuck. Otherwise, a much cleaner way was to have pigs in the streets, and they would eat just everything and make it much cleaner.
Hang on, when are we talking about here?
Well, we're talking about centuries and centuries.
Like 14, 15, 1600s kind of thing?
All the way till the 1600s, yes.
Pigs.
Yes.
Okay.
Pigs were banished from the streets of Paris many times. Okay. I'm going to talk about the first time.
Yeah.
But they came back and kept coming back and kept coming back. And so they were really banished from the streets of Paris by Louis XIV in the 1600s.
Louis XIV did a lot.
He did quite a lot. Well, he reigned for 72 years.
Right. How high do you think the banishment of pigs is on his curriculum vitae?
I don't think that what people remember the most about, but it definitely made the streets much safer.
Right.
Because
okay.
pigs are killers.
Okay, tell me more.
You've ever heard about this king called Louis VI le Gros, Louis VI the Fat?
Yes. Now. Right now when you said it.
Right now. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's one of our kings that we love when we're kids because he's called Fat. And so this king is part of this period of France history that we don't know so much. It's at the end of the 10, beginning of the 1100s.
Right.
Okay. And he started to become so fat that it was hard for him to get up on a horse, lead his army, and be seen as a strong king. Okay. So he had his son pre-crowned. That means he was the next king to be, but he was already acting as king.
Okay.
Okay. But his father was still ruling. It's a bit of a difficult thing to understand. In terms
I'm with you.
law.
So he's so overweight that he decides to get his son to help out.
Exactly.
And makes an exception. You're the king as well, kind of.
Exactly.
Yep, I'm with you.
And that guy, so his prince slash king to be, okay, is riding his horse in the streets of Paris.
Fairly normal thing to do.
And going around a church called Saint Gervais, which still exists today.
I know it.
Okay.
I know it well.
Yes, there is a little passageway that's just been opened next to it.
And funny that you say that because the previous mayor of the Marais was on this show.
You're kidding.
2 years ago, and when I asked him his favorite secret was the passage that goes down along the southern side of that church that had been closed for 500 years.
It had been closed for good reason. It's there. Then one day when this prince is riding his horse once again. The horse is scared to death by a pig that just rushed to eat some more garbage.
Right.
Okay, so the prince falls from his horse, hits his head against a rock, and then the pig starts to walk over the prince and killed the prince.
Killed by a pig?
Killed by a pig in the streets of Paris when you are supposed to be the future of the kingdom.
Wow.
So all of France was terrified by that story because he was the future of the country. And you know, when the future of the country is gone, you obviously are scared for your future. It's his younger brother, who was studying to become a priest, who just was grabbed by the robe and say, "You're not going to be a priest anymore.
Wow.
You're going to be the new king." And he became Louis VII.
So that was down somewhere around that church.
Yes, it was just around the church.
So if you go down there now, can you see is there like a statue of a pig or something? I guess there would have a statue of a pig, a statue of the prince.
So let me tell you what happened. The king passed an edict, okay, like a presidential act or whatever, and he banished pigs from public space in Paris, not to scare anyone and not to kill anyone. So it was fine to have pigs, but it had to be in your private space, literally in your apartment or in your courtyard.
That's so interesting. I wonder
If a pig was caught in the streets of Paris,
yeah.
it was for the Paris executioner. It was a gift for him. He could kill the pig and eat the meat, free of charge. Regularly in Paris history, pigs were coming back because people had pigs.
Sure.
And pigs were banished again by kings. And it's Louis XIV who said, "Okay, we'll kill the pig, it will go to the executioner, and the owner of the pig will go to jail." And then people stopped.
When they
having their
when
pigs
they
in the
killed
streets.
when they killed the pig, did they use a guillotine?
Not yet.
No,
Not yet.
That's a different time in history.
Yeah, back then we were still working with a good axe.
I feel like I'm going to learn a lot from you over these weeks, Bertrand.
Thanks.
But also in the culinary world, because
Yes.
I never asked you to do this, but you've taken on the challenge of bringing in pastries and cakes.
Yes.
I see there's a paper bag with you today.
Yes, actually, I hope you would forget because it's a cake I love very, very much.
Great. Let's hear it.
It's called un palmier. Let me grab it.
Palmier.
Palmier, like a palm tree.
Yep, palmier. Okay.
Palmier. So palmier is this beautiful.
Wow, that is beautiful.
Either it's a heart-shaped but it's called a palm tree.
It doesn't look like a palm tree.
It doesn't look like a palm tree, but it's called a palm tree.
It looks like a heart.
It does look like a heart.
We have to describe it. It's about the size of. Imagine if you put your. Imagine a.
Don't talk about a 10-year-old anymore.
Imagine if you just a person with two average-sized hands, and they put them together as if making a book, right? So side by side, it's almost exactly that size. You must say, I'm doing it here. Look,
Yes.
it's the same size. Two hands next to each other.
It's more a palm of your hands than a palm tree. You're right.
So you've just snapped it in half there.
Yes.
May I have a taste?
Of course.
And this is connected to the fourth.
Yes, well, somehow, because the 4th district, I've told you, is where various communities have established themselves, including the Jewish community, okay? And part of the French Jewish community are coming from the Sephardic Jews who were established in former French empire, such as Algeria or side countries like Tunisia and Morocco. And so a lot of Mediterranean food were integrated into the French food thanks to this cultural bridge drawn by the Jewish community that moved from Northern Africa into France. And we're in Paris, in the 4th district.
And it's delicious. It's
It is.
kind of stickier than I thought it would be. I
it's
felt like
quite
it'd be
sweet.
really quite crunchy. But it is delicious and it's really intricately put together by the looks of it. I guess they do a one long thing and then roll it up.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you're going to have different size. In supermarket you buy, but they are very tiny. But these ones are the.
And what does
are
it
the
cost
treat.
for something like that?
It's €2.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
And does that count as viennoiserie as well?
No, it does not.
What's the difference? Patisserie is like pastry.
Yes. Viennoiserie, it's, how do you say, flaked croissant, pain au chocolat, chausson aux pommes. It's these pastries where you have different layers.
That's viennoiserie.
Yes.
So a croissant is viennoiserie.
Yes.
What? I've been saying patisserie this whole time.
No, pâtisserie. The pâtisserie has the same root as pâté or pasta. Okay. So it's more the tart or the pies, etc.
Yeah.
Or all the cakes, etc.
Yeah.
But viennoiserie, there's a story about viennoiserie that it was coming from Vienna.
Right.
Okay, and that's the croissant.
Croissant.
And all. So that's why it's, the word come from Viennois.
Is it true or false? Croissants from Vienna.
It's true that it was brought into the French gastronomy from the Austrian Empire. That is correct.
Not the Australian Empire, by any chance.
No,
the Austrian.
I'm sorry.
Fair enough.
But we added something important into the viennoiserie,
What's
which
that?
is butter, French butter.
Okay. Well, as usual, a picture of your delicious treat will be shared on Instagram. Guys, go and find if you're not following on Instagram, that's where, you know what, I think that's where the community is these days.
Yes?
Yeah, more than Facebook, more than Twitter, Instagram. So go and check out the Eiffel Tower and My Private Paris. And we're going to be jumping across the river for next week.
Yes.
You like the left bank?
I was raised, I grew from a boy to a man on the left bank.
A boy to a man on the left bank. That sounds like the title of your new memoir if you're going to have one. But I don't know about that. We'll talk again next week. Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
And see you then.
À bientôt.
Well, there you have it, guys. That was Bertrand from My Private Paris. Let me spell it out for you again. myprivateparis.com. If you're just going to go to the website, make sure you let them know that you found them from me. Otherwise, go via theeiffeltower.com/tours, and they'll know that you came from me that way. And say hello from me. Especially if you get Bertrand. Let him know and tell him to bring you some baked goods like he did for me. He's got a very good taste in that kind of stuff. Now, I just wanted to round out this episode by saying that next week we've got a bonus. Not even next week. I've got a treat for everyone later this week. To get to the 5th arrondissement, you need to cross something. The River Seine. And lucky for us, I managed to snag Elaine Chelino, an author who's just written a book called The Seine. It's the book club book. If you're not in the book club, it's free on Facebook. Go and check it out. I went to her house the other day, sat down and talked for half an hour about the Seine River, and it was really fun. I'm going to release that on Thursday because, look, it's not an arrondissement, is it? It's a river. It has to come out as a bonus episode. That's going to be on Thursday. Back on Monday with the 5th arrondissement, and then the week after, we're going to the 13 au Jardin, the bakery right by Luxembourg Gardens, where Kaisa and Laurel are talking about that very beautiful arrondissement. That's a fun one. Get ready for that, guys. As for me, my name's Oliver G. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Oh yeah, big shout out to the Patreon supporters. You can read about it if you check out now. If you check it out right now, I'm going to be hosting as far as I know, the world's first interactive, international live cheese tasting event. It's fun, it's funny, and it's going to be crazy. I want you to be part of it. The idea, without giving too much away, is that everyone goes off and buys cheese and then watches and listens while me and an expert tastes that cheese and figures what wine it goes with, all that kind of stuff. And you'll be doing it with me, but only if you're a Patreon supporter. Patreon.com/the Eiffel Tower. Support this work, and I'll keep doing it. See you next week, everybody. Merci beaucoup.